All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Yarns with Andy. Today I've got Bayard and Ben. Bayard from the Development Collective, and Ben the picture drawer, apparently. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Good
Pleasure to
here.
be here.
I do want to put out a little apology to both of these guys. I did schedule a podcast with them earlier, and I think Bridget's roasted me for that. and I was late again today, so I apologize.
That's all right. We enjoy the waiting room, mate. It's good.
Yeah. I'm sure these guys made you coffee, didn't they?
Yeah, they offered.
Oh, yeah, they offered. They offered.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do you guys want to tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, I can kick it off, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously the director of the Development Collective. So we are predominantly an architecture business, but we have in-house town planning. So that's my background, is in town planning. 20 years ago, I think I worked for the council and never looked back really. Well, would never go there again. And we kind of hybrid run project coordination within TDC as well. So we work predominantly, I guess, with mum and dad developers. So
nice.
We deal with kind of anything up to like 4 to 30 type unit developments. And we launched our business. So I launched my business in 2016, which is kind of around the advent of the unitary plan when that was first launched, I guess, in Auckland. And so, overnight we obviously saw a significant change from, people that just owned properties to all of a sudden overnight they became developers in their own right. And so we set up a business, I guess, to support that. So that's my background, and purely from a service perspective, I guess. And then on the side, I run Urbazen Limited as a director as well, which is a development company. So we've just finished our first project in Mount Eden for 20 odd units in March.
Congratulations.
In March, still ongoing, but in March it was finished. Practical completion and CCC was issued around March this year. And obviously, all sold. Yep. I think we sold it in 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yep, fastest selling.
At these interest rates.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the interest rates at the time, right? So I think we sold them in 2020.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It was the fastest selling development Barfoot history. So that was something we're pretty proud of. But obviously we rode it through COVID, cyclones. I think there were floods in there at some point, lockdowns, and like high interest rates, obviously at the back end of the project. So rode it through some pretty gnarly times, but obviously that gave me quite a lot of information and IP around, what our client's going to go through on the development side, and all the pitfalls and pains that probably we aren't exposed to on the service side as much as we should be.
Yep.
And so, that's a bit of myself.
Yeah, cool. Ben?
Me? Well, I'm coming up 10 years maybe in the architecture industry.
Oh, yeah.
Studied down in Victoria, in
So
Wellington.
you're a master picture drawer then?
A master picture drawer, yeah. Some would say. I sort of cut my teeth at higher end firms, sort of across New Zealand. And then I worked for a few years over in Dubai.
Oh, yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Do you know I studied in Dubai?
Oh, nice, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big place over there, eh?
I made concrete jungle, hey?
Whole different scale.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just air conditioned, 24/7.
Yeah.
It was cool over there. I did the Dubai Pavilion for the World Expo,
Oh, yeah.
which was went from doing houses to a multi-billion-dollar project, so that was a bit of a change, but good experience.
Yeah.
And then I came back here and flipped it up and got involved with Bayard and the Development Collective. So I focused on sort of developments, and when money came to the forefront,
So
of,
you've
of
gone
the
from
design.
the Dubai Pavilion to designing houses.
Yeah, I've gone from Her Highness signing off multi-million-dollar variations without a blank to getting screwed down for 10 grand.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not that
It's
bad.
not that bad. I bet it's not that bad. Constrained budgets.
Who's screwing you
Mum and
down?
dad developers.
Yeah.
But I think that change has been valuable,
Yeah.
I think that separation between architects and money is a bit of an issue. And I think coming into a job where money starts to become a focus does help to refocus your design intent and approach. So it's been a valuable last few years working with Bayard.
That design becomes ever so more important when it's a mum and dad developer, because you
Huge.
can't dip into the bank to say I need more money
Yeah.
because we fucked up the design.
That's right. Yeah.
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 No, interesting. Welcome, guys. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time and appreciate you being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. Is that?
It was 5 minutes exactly.
So, do you guys know how this works?
Nah.
No, not really.
I should have explained it before we started.
You could have explained it in the car, mate, on the way
Oh,
here.
yeah, I know. So it's 5-minute clips. We record in 5-minute segments,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
and then put it all together for Spotify and I don't know where else, somewhere else. Google something. Google
Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But the YouTube ones just goes 5-minute clips. So the
Okay.
SEO picks up the key search words and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And from there, they cut the 1-minute clips into LinkedIn, TikTok, Insta Reels, YouTube Shorts,
Just
something like that. Yeah, whatever. wherever.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
All
so,
over the net.
So we take breaks in 5 minutes.
Okay.
And if you're not happy with the direction we go in as well, happy to change direction, change course.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty chill, pretty cash.
Easy.
Easy.
And I just start with a question. If you guys have a question in between, just shoot, bro. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Cool.
Should probably turn my phone off.
Yeah, I should turn mine off.
Okay. So, question to both of you. Do you think the New Zealand construction industry needs a more cohesive community? Like, how do we build that relationship or develop that relationship between the design community and the construct community? Because there's currently a massive divide between the two. Would you agree?
Yep, huge divide. I mean, I can only really leverage off personal experience, Andy,
Sure.
just with going through my development, right? So, and I think, and I kind of touched on before, it's fair to say under the service side of my business, we're not as exposed to, what goes on a construction site as kind of heavily as perhaps we should be. And I think that's probably part of the problem. But purely watching it from a development experience, I see a very disjointed industry. I like to kind of term it along the lines of ships all pointing in the same direction, and it's probably fair to say there are no ships pointing in the same direction. And that extends not just from the architecture side of it versus construction, that extends to engineers versus architects. It's kind of all the way through, and it starts at the start, even in the town planning space. Obviously, town planners push against architects, so that's also a bit of a juxtaposition, that relationship. So, having witnessed it, I see it as a significantly disjointed industry. There's no real process in terms of communication. It's run essentially by people behind desks that aren't on site, I guess, regularly enough in dealing with the builders. And that creates that kind of communication breakdown, which I kind of alluded to.
When you say it's run by people behind desks, can you expand on that a little bit more?
I need to be careful here.
Well,
but
we're both behind the desk, right?
yeah, I mean,
part of the
look,
industry.
we're guilty of it. I'm as a town planner guilty of it, right?
Right.
We sit behind desks, right, and we don't go to site and we don't look at things, and we might get the resource consent out through those early stages, but then we cut ties with the project from there, which is, in a sense, the town planner really does, this is on a really small scale as part of the service issues. The town planner really needs to see the project all the way through, right? Because they're the ones that set out the vision to begin with in tandem with the architect. But often what I found through our Urbazen project was the key people that needed to be involved and needed to be on site weren't on site. So the builders, they can only go so far, right? Like they're there to build and they're there to execute what they're good at, which is construction. Yep. But without having that support crew around them, who are all sitting in desks across Auckland, mistakes happen, delays occur.
I witnessed that in major construction projects as well.
Yeah,
it's a paper wall.
Yeah, and they're left kind of picking up the pieces or guesswork, I guess, which creates delays. So the way that obviously development construction works is the key person behind the desk is the engineer to the contract, right? So you know that under the 3910 construction contract. But often
what are they called now? They're called contract administrators.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be a big shake-up in that area because often these engineer the contracts, they're not on site. I mean, they never visit. They very rarely visit the site. And when they do, the horse is kind of bolted in terms of the issues. So, but they're there administering the contract behind a desk. It's the wrong way to look at it, right? They should be administering the contract on site.
Yeah.
as opposed to sitting behind a desk. But
Yep. I
that's
fully agree.
it's the way we have the law set up.
Yeah.
And that, as I said, that flows all the way through the construction phase. So the architects are, and I don't think it's a fault of the architects. It's more so a fault of the way that they're perceived in the industry. They're often not involved in that construction phase of the development unless they're sitting behind their desks doing variations and things like that at the request of the builder. But they're critical to be involved in observation, to make sure that what they kind of designed from the outset, their vision, is executed properly on site. Because without that, it causes those delays which I talk about. And delays to a developer is like a knife to the heart, because
Yeah.
a delay costs. Every delay, we think about our project and we go, a month delay for us is 60 grand interest. These are not small numbers, right?
Yeah.
So when you get a 3 or 4 month delay on
I
your
mean,
project,
it's only 60 grand interest, plus there's your P&G cost,
plus there's all the other outside costs, right?
Yeah.
Legal costs, and,
Yeah.
and people are involved in it longer, so there's more cost involved in it.
Ben, what are your views, mate?
I think there's two parts to that. Like, I think there is a bit of tension out there, but there's also new builders, new architects coming in that have the want to be getting on and doing good work together. But there's just no baseline to. I mean, when things go wrong, there's a problem with who takes the blame, right? And I think that comes from how council and how compliance is run. I mean, the fact that we have Codemark and brands and all of these things that sign off all these products. But then we use them and we put them together how they describe or want things done. Then we still have to send it to council. And council, whoever's there, some guy that's sitting there for 3 months, then he leaves, just signs off and says it's okay. Just seems ridiculous to me. What needs to happen is if there's a product coming in to the country that says I'm a weatherproof product, then you back it and you go to site and you communicate with the architects and the builders and you come up with a detail for that specific project that you're happy with, and then your company backs it. Then we no longer need council anymore, because if the compliance comes in at the company phase, if you're going to be a company that's coming into the country and is saying, here's a product, this is what I want to do, then you need to prove before it goes to market that it is compliant, that it suits and exceeds everything that the country needs. Then council is cut out. And then it also means when we're on site with the building.
But then, if you put the onus on the companies, then you're literally asking for another weather tightness delay, leaky building issue, and you're inviting James Hardy into the country, aren't you?
Yeah, but there's obviously the issue there. But the problem with that is, in the Netherlands is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
Architects don't really take much issue over there. The builder holds all issues. If things happen, the builder takes the blame, right?
So the liability, the risk, everything sits on the construction company.
On the
itself.
construction company, but based off the fact that they're installing a product to a company standard. So if the builder installs a product to the spec of the company that's providing it, then they can't ever be in trouble. If they go outside and cut corners and do something funny and then it starts leaking and then it's proved that way, then the builder eats it. But they've got products over there that, and the companies are incentivized to create something, not like James Hardy.
Hang on, so how is that going to bridge the gap between construct and design, though?
Because then it'll mean that there's no longer this tension between the builder and the architect. Because at the moment you get on site and there's kind of everyone tries to big dick each other.
Who
and
done
be
it?
like, who's important, who's leading. The architect will come on site, no, you have to build it this way. Whereas over there it's like the builder's like, look, I'm in charge and I'm going to build it, and this is your vision, I get that, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm doing. And so then the architect, takes a back seat and starts to facilitate and work with the builder to get to the end. At the moment, we've just got, architect turns up and says, this is how it's got to look. The builder says, I don't want to build it that way. And
But
there's just a
that's
constant-
why we've got ECIs in place, right?
Yeah, but we could just cut all that out.
Okay, interesting.
I was told that.
Interesting.
I was told I could swear on this, so I'm going to swear. It's like a fucking a game of Pluto, right?
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
site, who done it? Like that's the attitude that the developer sees. No one takes ownership of any issues. They finger point at individuals, and you try and find who's responsible on that. Good luck. Like
Hey, I make a living doing that.
there is, well, from a developer's perspective, we're not interested in finding that. We're interested in finishing the project,
100%.
right?
Yep.
So who suffers, I guess? The client suffers, right?
Always. 100%.
And the client's sitting there going, who's at fault? I don't really give a shit
Is
who's
it
at
the designer?
fault.
Is it the engineer? Is it the
I-
contractor? Is
yeah.
it the builder? Is it the subcontractor?
Yeah.
Is it the procurement guy?
I've
Who-
got my lenders sitting there, and they don't take annual leave. And every minute that goes by, it's costing me $500. So I don't really give a shit who's at fault.
Yeah.
Just get on and do it.
Yeah.
But you never kind of get to the bottom of who's at fault. It's always a very grey area, and we've got issues across the board with Urbazin around that, and there's still no ownership. There's no one like putting their hands up saying, well, that was me or that was me. And to try and unravel that through 3910 and through the contract and through the legal
impossible.
process is an absolute nightmare.
It's
Yep.
expensive as well.
Yep.
It's absolutely expensive.
And it's a waste of your time, right?
100%.
It's like you should be concentrating on the good stuff in life,
Mm.
not on that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, mate, is that a developer in you talking? Eh?
What's that?
Is that the developer in you talking?
100%.
Yeah, interesting insights, guys. Really interesting insights. Let's Too
It
long?
was a bit longer, but it was good. And also, I'm thinking.
I was getting a bit
an
passionate.
extra person, so they are going to be a bit longer anyway. And the discussion will go on.
Yeah, okay.
I was winding up. I was winding
I know you're winding up,
up.
but I had to I was like, yeah, okay. We need to bring back the conversation to the topics. Otherwise, the SEOs just...
Yeah.
Anyways, I've got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. What is the topic?
What was the topic exactly? So where do you guys want to take this conversation now?
Yeah, for me, it's we're not on now, are we?
No, this is when we're in between.
Like rather than sit here and beat on the negative drum, it's probably just about what can be done going forward,
Yeah.
and the ideas that we have and the ways that designers could work with the builders and
Yep.
developers could
Let's
probably
talk
work.
about that.
Yep.
All right. Good. Cool. So, guys, in your opinion, how do we then start working together? The design team and the construct team. How do we bring them closer? I want to start with Ben now.
Okay, first.
Start with me.
Sorry.
Oh, I like to think about it while he's talking,
Yeah, I know. See, no. That's why we're cutting to you first, mate.
How do we make it better? I think
One of the ideas you presented was, put the onus on the construction company.
The company, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And we'll try and cut the council out of it by
Yeah.
getting the products,
Yeah.
the product supplier
Yeah.
accountable for his
Yeah.
product.
Or just basically just putting a solid baseline that when things do go awry, it's like a place to revert to that everyone's comfortable and everyone is happy with. Right at the moment, it's super grey, right, in terms of no one really knows who's going to take liability. Everyone knows that, if this goes wrong, I can push it off to this person. If this goes wrong, I can push it this way, this way, this way, this way. I think if we can figure out a way to get that even baseline, then it's a good foundation for everything to build up on top of. But at the moment, it's shaky ground, so everything sort of builds up like a house of cards, and then one thing slightly goes awry and it's over.
Yep.
So I think it's about finding that happy baseline. I think there's endless ways that you could come up with that. Whether that's you get everyone involved day one, so you say to the client, you're not just paying the architect's fees, you're paying everyone's fees today. So that's probably never going to happen because no one's going to eat that bullet. But in an ideal world, it would be good to sit down and have like a studio session with the engineer and with this and with that, because
With the main construction company.
with the main construction company,
with the subcontractors
the whole
who
lot.
actually build the job.
Exactly, and because all contractors are different. Some contractors are great with timber, some are shit with timber.
Does that ever happen? Have you ever sat down and actually presented your vision of the design?
We
Turn around and say, I'm the master picture drawer, here's the vision, with the construction company, with the engineer to the contract, with the main contractor and their subcontractors?
We've done it. We try and do
Limited.
early contractor involvement a lot. Like that's what we push to a lot of our clients, but it generally ends up being just the builder. We've only really done it on a couple of smaller projects, but that always is well received, because then it gets the builder aligned, and then you can say, it solves one of the problems at least. These are the drawings, you've seen them. Are there going to be any variations? Is there anything you want changed? And then sign them and say, sweet, variations are now on you. So then that, aligns the ships in that sense from the outset, but then equally
Well, at that
also
point, by saying that, you've just transferred your risk to the main construction company, haven't you?
Exactly. So, I think it's that,
yeah.
but getting that baseline. I think council is a big part of that, both resource consent and building consent. The fact that they're asking for more density, but then they're saying you can't put that third story on unless you fold your roof in 50 different ways, and you've got water egress risks everywhere. It's just everyone. We need that baseline. I think
Yep.
That's where we need to come from.
How do we get the ships pointing in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, but I'll probably take it a step back, right, and just maybe give a bit of background of where New Zealand's at in the construction industry, particularly with the projects that we see coming off on our desk. I mean, the reality is, you know, we are 2016 was when the unitary plan was released, right? So we're 7 years into understanding how to build multi-unit housing. It's a very short time frame, and it's probably fair to say that we're not set up for it. And I think, you know, I can lean on my experience in that. Other countries have been doing this for years, right? They've been building, you know, large-scale apartments and multi-unit housing for years. In New Zealand, it's kind of very new, and we're talking that mid-density stuff. We're talking, you know, the 20-unit stuff. Like, it's not. There's construction companies that, you know, in my view, are just not set up for it. And I think one of the big things I noticed within the industry was a lack of communication, like a lack of people working together. And it blows my mind because we're sitting in 2023, we have technology coming out our ears. Like, we sit there with our computers on our desk, our phones, but we don't have a system where everyone's communicating in the same database. And that's from suppliers all the way through. So we still use email, you know. It's like, what was that? When was that released? Like, I think I had a Hotmail account, 20 years ago or something like that?
Yeah.
We haven't advanced our technologies to be able to communicate as a group and effectively execute things on site. So, you know, there's guys still running on pads of paper and stuff like that. So I think one of the big ways to solve it would be to start to sharpen up a bit on technology, CRM systems, and ways in which everyone within that team can communicate and can communicate effectively. So the builders get that message on site. They know exactly. The architect gets the message through the CRM system. I need this. I need that. I need this. That seems to be one.
There are good change management systems out there.
We're just not adopting them. Like,
Well,
and there's certainly no group adoption of it. So
Yeah. There's definitely Aconex, there's Procore, there's other.
I think
good
larger scale projects do it for sure.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Which obviously projects like that have to run it. These smaller ones,
So
someone's
you
got to
guys,
pay
but
for
we're
it.
talking about that mid stuff, which is the bulk of the developments that we see, and it's probably fair to say the bulk of developments that go on is, you know, within that kind of 3 to 10 million space, right? There's probably more of that coming through, and that's just because of the way that Auckland's set up in terms of site sizes and how it's cut and divided and how the unitary plan works. There's more in that space than say your 50, 60, 100 unit type stuff.
mate, there's a business idea right there. Why don't we set up a little software that would do change management for mid?
I'm
I'd
just
love
finishing
that.
it actually.
I'd love that.
Yeah, like literally, that's the gap in the market that you're telling me that
Yeah.
exists, and the Procos and the Aconex don't cater to mid-size development.
Yeah, and I think, you know,
Or they're too expensive. I don't know.
100%. And it's just reiterating that we're new, right? We're quite new to this. Like, there are construction companies that have been around that can deliver 50-unit plus apartments and stuff, and we know those ones. But there's very limited experience in that kind of mid-density space. And you see that with some of the projects that you drive past, right? The execution's just not there.
Can I ask you one more question, though?
Yeah.
England's been doing it for 100 years. They've been building row houses for 100, 200 years now. Yeah? We've just caught on to building row houses, 20-unit blocks. What can we learn from them? Why aren't we learning from them?
Well, it's that it's the underground
Public
rail issue, right?
transport, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like
we're
they've been
still
building
not-
underground rails for like however many years, and we're only
Yeah,
just
and-
finishing ours.
Are we?
What
We're not finishing
What
up.
can we learn? What can we learn from them? I mean, I worked in London for 5 years, right? They have the relationship between the builder and the architect is very strong over there, and it comes back again to that communication. It comes back to what Ben was talking around responsibility and who's taking ownership of what. That's probably the biggest message we can learn from them. At the moment, it's set up in a way that it's a very grey area in terms of who's taking ownership and responsibility. Everyone just passes it on to the council, I guess, in a sense. You know, how often have we heard coming across TDC's desks, it wasn't on the drawings. It's like, well, okay, so you went and just did it anyway, but you didn't talk to us and then ask us to make that change, and then So I think there's just a little bit of a disconnect there between lack of experience in executing those projects and what's required to communicate effectively to those involved, I guess. Yeah.
But okay, so here's my point. So I've lived in New Zealand for 15 years now, and I've travelled quite a bit. But why are we always 10, 15 years behind the rest of the entire world? Why can't we just go right? Okay, we spent 4 years trying to revise NZ3910. Right, we still came out with another version of the contract that adds more administration to it. Hasn't fundamentally solved any problems. Yeah, it still focuses on transferring risk from the client all the way down. Shit's flowing downhill, right? Everything we have 10 years behind. We could have just gone and adopted NEC. Okay, a different form of contract that balances risk between all parties. That's literally all we're talking about today. So how do we balance the risk, and how do we manage that risk so all the ships point in the right direction? Yeah.
I guess the first comment would be, those documents that are drafted, they need to be drafted by real life people, like that actually are involved in the industry and understand the pitfalls of the industry. They can't be drafted based on case law, like by a legal representative. No offence to legal people, but they need to be drafted by actually, real life people, construction companies and developers who actually understand the pitfalls in the industry. That's probably my first point.
Yeah, interesting though. But I guess the one other thing we could do as a nation is look overseas and see what other people are doing, how they're effectively communicating, how they're working well. I don't think we do enough of that in New Zealand.
No, it's fair, and I see it, in the planning industry, right? So in England, it's the planning system is very simple and set up very simple. Your reports that go into council are 2 pages long. It's all they need to be. They've got the option to decline it if they want, and then it goes back to you, and you get a free shot at resubmitting.
In comparison to New Zealand, how?
In comparison to New Zealand, we write a 40-page report for one house, and it's all regurgitated policy from the RMA. So we're policy heavy, right? And that's transferred. Yeah, and it's transferred to 3910. Now it's just become policy heavy, and it's just been littered with too much legal jargon. We just need to simplify it, I guess. Simplifying things creates efficiencies, right?
Whose accountability is that? How do we simplify it?
Starts at the top, doesn't it? Like it starts at
legislators.
Yeah, it starts at the government. They need to look at ways to simplify the building industry, and you can start from the start, and you can look at the complexities around town planning and why it takes so long. Well, it takes so long because someone's reading a 40-page report when actually they probably only need to read 2 pages. That's an example. The system in England was really efficient, and it was cheap. To lodge a planning application in England is £150. Over here, it's $10,000. So, and that's a deposit. So, and that's before they charge you more time over there.
So that's why
it's convoluted, complex. Yep, and there are people that benefit from that outside of the industry, and it's overly complex. But in actual fact, the irony behind it is that the New Zealand system is actually really simple because it's rule-based. So you either meet the rule or you don't meet the rule. Whereas over in England, it's policy-based. So you've got to put a policy argument together, which is a bit more subjective. But for some reason, it's a hell of a lot simpler over there.
But if it's rule-based, that's yes and no. Right?
But it's rule-based to protect the quarter-acre dream at this point. Like some of the rules are just they don't facilitate good design. They restrict good design, and they restrict simple constructability. They make constructability for the density that for Auckland to maintain itself as a city of worth across the world. We need to hit certain metrics. We need a certain number of people. We need a certain number of things, and we shot ourselves in the foot by trying to do that with the quarter-acre dream. I mean, you look at Auckland top to bottom, it's 150 kilometres, the biggest by land area in the world. It was ridiculous. I mean, and then all of these rules and everything.
Can you give me an example of where these rules that are in place restrict design and buildability on site?
Well, you'd be better to talk about that, but the height in relation to boundaries is a big one. Setbacks and things, they're trying to get us to build houses, dwellings close to one another, but they force a 1 metre setback across. So you're going to have these
Right.
4, 5, 6-storey buildings 2 metres apart. What is happening in that 2 metre space? Absolutely nothing. It's just dead space, especially once you start getting up high. It's just row housing not happening.
Yeah, and I think the kind of point to the conversation was once the client goes through, the developer and the client goes through that process and outlays all of that cost, including the time. It takes 12 to 14 months just to get consents in place. Once they go through that process, they get to the point where the construction company takes over, and we know that the construction company from experience are really critical in executing the project. They're exhausted. They've spent a lot of money. They don't want to spend any more on consultants to be involved. They're like, we've run out of money. And they're completely exhausted by all of the red tape that they've just gone through. And yet they're exhausted at the point in the contract, point in the process where it's probably the most critical. Yeah. They need to use all their energy down the other end as opposed to worrying about all of this red tape rubbish. And a lot of this planning red tape rubbish is rubbish. Like it's not really achieving much. I need to be careful on this.
Yeah, no, that's right. You don't need to be
but,
careful, mate.
We see it in the UK, having, as I said, having worked in local government over there, these consents they literally have 20, I think they had 10 working days they had to get it done. And if the council didn't get it done, they don't get funded from the government. So they then have to make a decision within that 10 days. They can't put it on hold, can't pause it. It's got to be made. That created probably a 1 to 2 month consent process through planning, and then their building consents are even easier. So they were ready to be on site after 4 months, and they probably spent half of what we spend, even less. So the developers.
So in comparison to New Zealand, from paper to on site, give me an estimate of the time.
So New Zealand, it's roughly the resource consents alone are 6 months, right? So it's roughly 12 to 14 months, depending on scale of the project. So we're 10 months, of course.
Yeah, okay.
TDC.
And so say 12 to 14 months from paper.
Yep.
From when I say, here's $10 million, I want to build 10 houses, to you actually put a spade in the ground. 14 months.
Yep.
12 to 14
probably. Yep. And that doesn't include the downtime with sales and the downtime with finance and stuff. Yep. So it could be longer. I can only really comment on the planning side of the UK, but I know that it's roughly around 2 months to get through planning, and probably only half a month of that is council processing. So it's super quick, and I believe their building code is set up to be much more efficient as well. So they're probably more like 4 to 5 months to dig dirt.
So from paper to spade in the ground.
Yeah, and you can imagine the mood of the client at the 14-month mark versus the 6-month mark. Well, you've got a lot more energy after 6 months, haven't you? You're a little bit more motivated, and you're ready to tackle the hardest part of the process. Yeah. Whereas once we get to 14 months here, we're exhausted. The developer's
you've already moved on to other stuff.
Yeah.
Really interesting conversation. So key points, just to summarize there, is we need to simplify our planning process. We need to adopt digitalization.
100%.
Absolutely simplify. And fast track from how do we get from paper to spade in the ground, or from master designer to spade in the ground as quickly as possible.
Yep.
14 months is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yep. And we tell our clients that, on a weekly basis, and you can see the look on their face. They're like, what?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to be 2 months. And
New Zealand, we can do better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and just one other thing on that, if those rules relax, instead of us designers spending so much time trying to figure out how to get this design to fit the rules, we can take that time and get it to be more sustainable. We can get it to be a simpler construction or buildable. Or
let's start there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you can get the design to be more buildable, you've solved half the fucking problem.
Exactly. And so instead of trying to figure out how we can get it to fit some sort of weird recession plan, we can sit there and spend those 2 or 3 days coming up with the best way to build.
Absolutely, mate. Bang on. Ooh, okay, that was a long one.
Yep.
It was a long one, but it was like 2 mediums because there was a really nice
Cool.
split.
Awesome. Where do you guys want to go with this conversation?
That's pretty good. Look,
I'm
just enjoying the rant, to be honest.
I'm actually enjoying this too.
Getting a lot off my chest.
Yeah. Fucking free therapy here.
No, but I mean, yeah, we've touched on that point, right? It's how, like, you know, that those case studies are over there overseas, right? But we just do not adopt them.
We don't. That's half my problem. I'm like sitting down here and I'm going, guys, like.
And the irony with planning, like the New Zealand planning system, is we've trained a significant generation of box tickers, and they're not creatives, so they're not big picture thinkers.
Yeah.
So because they know they can lean back on those boxes that just need to be ticked.
Yeah.
And that creates dysfunction within the industry as well.
Mm.
Like, yeah,
Okay. So how many more?
We've got 4 mediums so far.
All right.
Yeah,
Can we do one or two? One more?
Time for 2, but if you've got to.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
to you though.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for me?
How would you fix it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, mate. Let's go. Okay. Hang on. Are we ready to roll?
Just go to the bathroom.
Okay, cool. Sorry, we'll just wait for him to get
Yeah,
back.
yeah, cool. Give you time to think.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Hang on, that's the worst thing you can do to me. Give me time to think.
Yeah, I mean,
Literally give me time to think.
you've worked overseas, right? How would you fix it?
Yeah,
You know?
okay. Well, let's wait for the cameraman to get back.
One Network News.
Mm.
Oh, how would I fucking fix it? No idea.
Yeah, well, the CRM one's interesting, because it's kind of like, it's like BIM again. We've got all these tools, BIM, out there that, we could technically draw it to suit and solve problems before we get on site, but no one pays for it, especially at our scale.
That's how I would fix it. Visualization.
Yeah, same. But I think, it's probably going to start getting there, especially with AI starting to come into it. It'll start getting us to a point where we can. It'll also be quite cool if these companies that bring out the products are then forced to also bring out a BIM file that has everything loaded, so I can just grab it, put it in the build.
But
There's a
the
lot
other
more
thing
you
as
can do
well
with
is
a
like,
BIM file, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
I've
amounts.
got to show you some stuff that we do with BIM. It's fucking mind blowing. Like I can animate an entire 3D model to. I'll save it for the fucking video.
the other thing as well is like, particularly to the consultant side of the industry, is just get off your fucking chair.
Yeah.
Go to site.
Tell me about it.
Because once you see it on site, you get an appreciation for it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Too often,
Yeah.
no one turns up, or they
No.
just don't see stuff.
Through
Like,
COVID, I helped write the methodology and the strategy for the Winston Wallboard's job in Tauranga.
Yep.
The gymboard factory. I quantified it. I did the right things, pulled out a BOQ, whatnot, and wrote the program. But the day one, I went and stood on site, and I was like, holy fuck, this site's huge.
There you go.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, I've never seen such this is like just a big tin shed.
But-
But you look at it in a drawing, you look at an A3 sheet, and you just don't appreciate how big it is, right?
yeah.
Then COVID was done and drove to Tauranga, and I was like, I could not believe my eyes. Walking from one end to the other end would literally take you 5 minutes.
But I suspect
Gigafactory.
one of the problems is what we just talked about earlier, right? Like the industry is just littered with dealing with red tape. So
You know what I mean?
so they're behind their desks addressing bullshit council queries, or
Yeah.
they're exhausted like dealing with all the rules and policies they've got to deal with. They don't have time to go to site.
Yeah.
It's completely upside down.
Yeah.
So you're actually better off to be at site 70% of your time and 30% in the office.
Yeah.
If you're a structural engineer, or if you're a civil engineer, or, because those are the things that can make or break a project, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like if they go wrong.
Design. Because it's the paperwork as well, isn't it? It's like literally, I've seen a job that I'm working on, they raise one RFI on average per working day.
Wow. That's crazy. So the drawings
It
are
is the state of the industry.
just not up to standard.
Is it that? Or is it, why wouldn't you have a fucking designer on site? Why do you have to raise an RFI?
Yeah.
Why can't you walk over to his desk?
Yep. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just come up to you and say, hey mate, this is design. Have you thought about this? This doesn't work.
We saw the value of that.
Can we just fucking redesign it? Can you like sort it out in the next 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You'd
And
be
then,
like,
and then I'll
easy
be like,
fix.
no, I've got to go away, talk to this person, write out this, give out this, check with council, check with that, and then I'll come back to you in 4 working days. It's just
Okay. On the other hand, let me put this out to you, right? So let's say I've just raised like 1 RFI per working day. You've exhausted your design budget. Yep. So you're like, I don't give a fuck about this job. Like, I don't have budget on this job, but the builder is now raising all of these fucking queries. You're already working on another project. You're master picture drawer, right? And you just go, suddenly it piles up, and they go, construction's on standstill, now you got to start working on all of this. How do you pick up 50 RFIs and start addressing all of them?
I mean, you're motivated in that regard though, because you're
Not if we're not engaged.
you've got liability. If we're not engaged, you're not motivated, but you've got liability risk, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But you got 50 though. How would you pick the most important?
I'd tell them to tell me which is most important.
Sure. And
Yeah.
they will tell you if they fucking knew. They have no fucking idea. Ask
True.
me, I'll tell you. They have no fucking idea what's important, what's not. Yeah, maybe the obvious ones.
they want
yeah.
it done
They-
last week.
They'll look at everything that's 1 month ahead, yes, but they will not look at what's going to impact the completion date and tell you this is what I need you to focus on because this affects a procurement chain of events. That's going to take me X amount of time. That's then going to impact my installation. All they can see is like fucking horseshoe, right? Or I'm building my substructure. Everything else is not important. Just fucking focus on my substructure. Obviously, that's important. I'm not saying it's not, but there's other things you're missing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And if you're raising one a day, that's fucking insanity.
It's a
So-
lot.
that's a lot. Yeah, there's something.
No. You say it's a lot. That's average for New Zealand construction.
Wow.
That's average for commercial construction. You're talking about residential. You have less problems in residential. 1 RFI a day on a commercial build is normal. Is normalized.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say we have less problems.
go.
It's
I think we
just-
can start,
Yeah.
We'll just go. Because we're already well there. We'll cut that, don't worry. And yeah, it's all good. We can cut when it comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Just go from there.
Alright. You'll do the swapping or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You guys have questions? For
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Yeah, so
we're rolling now. We're not on break anymore.
we're going to throw it back at you, Annie.
Yeah.
Like, we're sitting here saying what we think you can do to improve the industry, but you come from that background, right? And you've been overseas, so
I've been overseas.
over to you. You've worked overseas. Over
Yeah.
to you.
I worked in resi builds. I worked in commercial builds.
Put you on the hot spot.
Put me on the hotspot. What would I do? Yeah. Our consent process is inefficient. We've established that. We've identified that. Yep.
Yep.
Got to focus on fixing it. I'll ensure that every job that gets built has a 3D model. Yeah. It's BIM, but you would want to take it one step further. Yeah. You have Uniclass as a coding system within the model. Why don't you take it one step further and standardize how you actually code that model for procurement, for buildability, for, So then you start making that model the centroid of your entire project. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So today, from a program perspective, I'm a very lazy person, right? Okay. I can sit down and actually take a 3D model. If you've Mr. Master Picture Drawer, if you've done your job right, I can sit and actually press a button and get an output of every single task in the program, or every single element in the program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then has associated volumes with it. Yeah. Steel on level 1, right? How many UBs, how many UCs, whatever. Yeah. Right. And if you've coded all of that properly, now I've almost got a program. Think about it. It's an element. Now all I have to do is add a verb before it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Install steel. Right. The model's already got the quantities in them. Now I've got to assign a production rate to it. I know it's standardized. You know how many pieces of steel you can put a day. You're constrained by your crane lifting ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 pieces a day, 12 pieces a day. Yep. Maximum. There you go. Worked it out. And then now you got logic, right? We've been building buildings since the fucking pyramids.
Yeah.
Yep. You're constrained by rules of gravity. Yep. Predefine half your logic.
Yeah.
Who takes the liability if it's drawn wrong?
If it's drawn wrong,
in the
I mean,
3D model?
I'm not talking about liabilities. I'm talking about efficiencies here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to be accountable for the design.
Yeah.
And the main construction company is going to be accountable for the build. I'm saying, how do we make this entire process more efficient, right? Like once that 3D model then becomes a centroid, every design change you make, you then uprev the entire 3D model.
Yeah.
Who's appointed to kind of execute that though?
That's a really interesting question, right? Because that's always been the fight between the construction companies and the design companies, because the construction companies go, give me a 3D model, and then the design companies are always reluctant to hand it over. Always reluctant to hand it over. I don't know why. Right?
Liability, for sure.
IP.
Because the 3D model normally, well, always influences our 2D drawings, right? But our 2D drawings are checked and done, and we send those out, and we're happy for our liability to be on the drawings. But the
Agreed.
3D model is a can of worms, because everyone models differently, everyone's drawn differently, things
That's
can
the
be
problem.
hidden.
Standardization. We've got to get to standardization.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
I reckon
Yep.
AI will help with that. Like,
Absolutely.
There's a bit of that coming out at the moment.
Simplification, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So then now think about it, right? I can actually take my entire 3D model and I can visualize in a heat map on my 3D model on where my biggest variations have been.
Fair enough.
Why not?
Yeah,
It's
that's
powerful.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
I can now take my 3D model and run TikTok for construction. Yep. I'm going to explain to a guy what his 3-week look ahead is. Yep. On site. I now give him a fucking piece of paper with lines on it, and he now has to decipher those lines and now put a location on site and say, I need to do this in that particular zone. I need to do this particular task. But he's reading a paper. Imagine I could convert that and say, here's a 1 minute clip. This is what an animated 1 minute clip of a 4D simulation.
Yeah.
And say, this is what you're doing this week.
That'd be
Yeah.
brilliant.
Great.
Yeah, because we are a generation.
Got it on
where-
site. iPad.
Mate, it says this is what do they call it? Doom scrolling. That's literally what we do, right?
Yeah.
We're so used to doom scrolling. So why can't we get these guys to doom scroll
On site.
construction methodology?
Yeah. Yeah.
How come why not?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, sweet. Then get rid of all the project management companies.
Oh,
I like that.
Yeah, well, why do we need them? They are literally they are literally pushing paper from one end to the other. You've now eliminated an entire pool. I'm not saying get rid of them, repurpose them, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really
yeah,
care.
yeah.
Right? I'm talking about getting all the ships pointed in the right direction for a better outcome for the client. So we build smarter, faster, better.
yeah. So get rid of council too. No.
Can we?
Well, I mean, potentially, like if council comes in at that point where, the company and council comes in and pulls together the BIM software or the BIM elements.
Yep.
And so there's a BIM element somewhere online that I can click, grab, drop, and that I know that element is signed off by council and that element is signed off by the supplier or company or whoever it is. And then the model is suddenly just a combination of everything that's already been pre-approved.
Yeah.
Send that to council. Council can check through the model info, be like, it's all okay.
Yep.
Done.
And that
See
can
you later.
transfer to inspections, right? So they can utilise that model during inspections.
Yeah. 100%. Why not?
Right, to tick things
why
off.
can't you pre-approve your entire what do you produce? So you produce a PS1, a PS2, a PS3, and a PS4.
Yeah.
Those are all the producer statements, right? So as a designer, you're accountable for PS1 and 2. Am I right? Something like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the installer is accountable for PS3.
Yep.
And then there's an independent verifier who does PS4.
Correct. Yep.
Fuck, I hope I got that right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's right?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was winging that a bit. but yeah, so why can't we get all of that on the BIM model?
Well, I mean, the tools
Obviously,
are
you
there,
can't get
right?
a piece. It's just a piece of
It's-
paper
at
in
the
the end of
moment,
the day,
it's
but
just-
that's liability right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, it's just at the moment. I mean, the tools are there. Like with everything we've just talked about, there's the potential for that to happen.
Absolutely.
It's just we'd have to hire like 3 different BIM model managers in
Well,
house.
no, you don't. See, this is the problem, right? What you don't. Yeah. What? There's so many tools out there that can make this entire process so efficient. I may this may be like blue sky thinking and just go like
That's all good.
yeah, why not though? But nobody's doing it.
No.
Literally nobody's doing it. We're still stuck in the old ways of communicating.
That's that technology I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's huge potential and untapped market for this in the construction industry.
Yep.
Like I absolutely believe it.
Yep.
Believe it to be true.
Yep.
No, I agree. I'd love to do it. I just think it'd take me hours and hours and hours. And
It
hours.
won't take you hours and hours. What if we work together?
To come up with it.
Absolutely. Come up with a process. So let's say I'm the planner, you're the master picture drawer, right? We sit down together and I say, you're going to make my life 100 times easier if you can code these elements into the model in your design. That means you're helping buildability or helping me write the program.
Yeah.
So you now help me write the program. I can now then feed back into the model to say, I can simulate it and we can now improve communication. So
Yep.
there's just one idea that you and I could work together to actually fix effective communication on
Yep.
site.
And it assists in that stop-start stuff that we get, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, which slows companies down.
It slows them a lot. So if we can improve that communication on site by 1%, mate, I'll tell you what, we are in the right track.
No, I agree.
Yep,
I
100%.
agree.
Yep.
So I don't think it's going to take an army of people to do it. I think it's about the existing people working together.
Yep.
The designers, the project management companies, and the builders.
Yep.
And the subcontractors, the entire pool. And we need effective contracts that's going to enable better digitalization, that's going to enable collaboration. I keep fucking saying this over and over again, almost in every podcast I'm in, but it's the truth. I don't think there's any other way to...
And that extends, right? That extends all the way through to suppliers. So there's a breakdown in the way that that's communicated, which is, in a sense, what the role of the project manager is. The current way it's set up as a site manager is running communication lines with the suppliers, right? And there's no real system. There's ring them up, mitre 10 up on the day and deliver me this. There's no real system of who's actually coordinating that in advance to speed things up further on site. I noticed that with our project. Like they do it on the day almost, and then some don't turn up. So that slows things down as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's an easy technology, system that you could set up, right? Like another form of communication.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I mean, there's more, but I could keep going on about it.
There's a business in there somewhere.
Oh, mate, I think we've spoken about at least 3 business ideas today, which is quite interesting. Yeah, maybe we should go for a coffee after this. Eh? Or a beer. Yeah. Okay. How are we doing for time? We're good? Okay. Do you guys have anything else you want to discuss, or should we wrap up?
No, I think
No, it's pretty
Okay.
good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you guys into any sport?
Are we what?
Sport.
Yeah. Do you guys follow any sport?
Yep.
Cricket?
Rugby, golf,
Rugby.
golf a lot, cricket,
Golf a lot?
and definitely cricket.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, the usual, the 3 suspects, right?
The
The
three
New
suspects,
Zealand's
right?
3 suspects.
Yeah.
Do you snowboard?
Do I snowboard? Nah, bro, these snowboards are just here, right? Like just for show. Nah, I do snowboard, yes.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So I'm obviously from an Indian ethnic origin. I've never seen snow in my life till I came to New Zealand.
You got
And,
right
Wow.
and for my 24th birthday, I think, they took me down to the mountain. A couple of my mates surprised me down the mountain.
Yeah.
I'd seen snow, I jumped on a board and away I
So they
went.
had some of the best ski fields in India.
In India?
Yeah, up in the northern reaches.
I'm from southern India.
Ah,
Close to the equator,
Yeah.
hence I'm brownish,
Yeah.
blackish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you call that type. Whatever you call it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Hey,
nice.
hey, look at these guys. Eh? They're like, oh, racial subject.
no,
Love
not
it.
at all.
Not at all.
We're not playing South Africa in the rugby, mate.
Oh. We good? Yeah, nah. So I travel the world snowboarding now.
Sick.
That's what I do.
We
Nice.
both snowboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Not
Nice.
traveling the world snowboarding, but get on the board.
Where's your favourite spot?
Whistler.
Hey,
Or,
Whistler.
Chamonix, either.
Yep.
Yeah, Whistler, Chamonix is they're like my top 2 ski fields now.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Chamonix was unreal, magical.
Yeah. Make sure you get to Austria.
Austria?
Mm.
Yeah, right.
Meyerhofen.
Yeah, okay.
The Tyrol Valley. It's some of the best snowboarding I've ever done.
Yeah, it's just expensive, eh? And time consuming.
Over there, it's
Ah.
not.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's cheaper to get up the mountain there
Yeah,
because they live and breathe it, right?
yeah.
But yeah, it's an expensive sport. Yep.
Yeah, I have a trip, I think, planned to Japan.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's
yeah.
amazing as well.
Yes, I've
Naga-
heard. Like,
yeah.
I've heard. So
Nagano and yeah.
I don't know which mountain. I guess my friend's planning everything, and I'm just like, I'll tag along, bro. You pick the mountain easy.
Yeah, and ironically, they're not that busy. Like when we were there, so they work so hard, right? Because they work 6-day weeks. So the mountains are just quiet. There's
Yeah.
mainly Australians on there, which is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, definitely not a good thing.
You just hear these Australian accents coming down the mountain. You're like, God damn it! I thought I came to Japan.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time and being here. And
Awesome.
Really interesting chat.
Yeah,
Good to meet you.